Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great and following the 3 H's of the channel. In this video, it's all about the state of Indiana. So, pull up a stump with me and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. Here are some experiences that I've encountered throughout my life, and experiences that friends of mine had. I will be including accounts of my deceased friend who unfortunately took his own life. Rest in peace, Jacob. So we'll start with some of my accounts. I was around 13 years old, and my neighbor who lives next to my neighborhood had a large plot of land. It was around 300 acres, including the neighboring farmland and a nature preserve. I go trespass and play in his woods often, like the little dumbass I am. I used to find weird structures deep in the woods. One time I found 2 giant-ass trees crossed in an X. They were impossible to move on your own. They weren't deadfall. It was like they were deliberately put there. Nearby, I found a teepee-like structure. Years go by and I learned that this is Bigfoot activity. The big X was behind a neighbor's 8-acre pond that he dug out. I always kind of got the idea that the Bigfoot were using it as a marker for a water source. However, over time, both the X and the teepee disappeared like they were never there. Story number 2. I was 16 years old. It was around late September, just before deer season. I was walking home through the same woods from my friend's house. My friend's house is in a neighborhood that's across the woods. As I'm traveling south down a path that we use for the snowmobiles in the winter, it's thick brush on each side. The leaves haven't fallen yet, but it's really dark out. I couldn't see much. Just to my left is an opening in the brush with a deer stand. But something is standing next to this deer stand, about 50 yards away from me. I'm blaring black metal on my iPod, so I feel like I just interrupted a hunter or something. I say sorry, I'm trespassing, I'm just going home. There was no response from this thing. It looks like a big guy in a ghillie suit, just standing completely still. I get really creeped out. I hop the gate and head home without incident. I think I possibly seen a Bigfoot. Story number 3. Creepy neighborhood stories. This one involves a plot of land that is forbidden from being built on, as I think it is an early colonial burial site. So this happened to my uncle, who was around 16 at the time. He and some buddies were winter camping. This was on the land that would later on become where my neighborhood is. My uncle and his friends pitch a tent next to a place that's supposed to be a burial plot. One of my uncle's friends brought a Ouija board. Now, he didn't want to do this, but they begin to use the board inside the tent, each of them, due to peer pressure. They get into contact with someone claiming to be an uncle of my uncle. The tent begins to shake violently. They all bail out of the tent, running back to my grandparents' house. My uncle later discovered that the spirit that they were talking to apparently was indeed somebody related to him, and indeed a family member. This next story is involving this plot of land. Years later, the neighborhood was developed, and I was 12 years old. My friends and I were into ghost hunting because of all the TV shows. My friend takes a camera out there. He gets a bunch of orbs, but it's probably just dust. He claims that he got a picture of a purple lady, and immediately his camera broke. A house is built behind this lot. In the span of a year, more than 6 families move in and move out. They cite weird stuff happening there, very strange things. But the current family has been there for years now. I really want to ask them if they've experienced anything, but I don't want to freak them out. Now, for the history of the lot. All I know is that it was an early settler family that came to this area of Indiana, but the stories I gather about it explain the weird stuff. It was the 1940s, on the same plot of land. There used to be headstones and everything. It was a full typical cemetery. But then idiots with shotguns decided to use those tombstones for target practice because they had no morals. We jump forward to the 60s. A story goes that some kid went out there and dug up a human skull and brought it to school. Years later again, at my friend's house. My friend's family were the second homeowners when that house was built. They moved into the new house, and it had a big basement. His parents go into the walk-in closet that's downstairs. They found a weird altar that looks like it had bloodstains on the carpet. Other friend tells me that he's scared to stay at my friend's house because he constantly feels like he's being watched, and because all the doors open and close on their own. And now we go back to my parents' house. I was 16 or 17 at the time. I was also dumb and brought home a Ouija board from a friend's house because, like I said, I was really stupid at the time. I light candles around the board and tried to use it. I was alone. Nothing happens. I close the session and I blow out the candles. The next night, at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, our fire alarm goes off for no reason. Dad later finds out that I have the board and gives me hell for it. He said, "No wonder weird shit's happening here. Get rid of that effing board, boy." He would never elaborate on just what happened to him. But now recently, stuff has been happening in my parents' house when my mom and dad are down at the lake house. During this time, I was with my fiance at my parents' house. We were watching some ghost show, because of course we were. And then, we hear a loud bang somewhere in the house. I couldn't find anything downstairs, so I go upstairs, and there's still nothing. The only place that's left is the basement. I had closed that door, and it was now open. I refused to investigate, and thankfully, nothing else happened that night. But in a night in the summer of 2020, I was in my room with my fiance. My sister had just left a few minutes prior for her second job. I heard something making noise in my sister's room. And then I hear something that sounds like my sister, but when she was younger, say, "Mom?" I open the door. There's nobody in there. What the hell's going on in this house? Story 4. I've been dealing with this stuff for a long time, and I don't know if it was tied to an account that I haven't got into here, but it may cover some time. The same summer that I heard my little sister, but as a younger person, I was in the same house with my fiance again. We were alone, again. Weird stuff had been happening in my bathroom, with my shampoo being moved to random spots, just random things going missing and reappearing. My fiance goes to the bathroom. I hear her scream. I run in there. On the shower wall is an inverted cross painted on the wall in shampoo. After that, I start looking for help. I begin working with a medium and a demonologist to find out just what the hell's going on in the woods and in this house. So now we go to the summer of 2021. By this time, activity has been dormant for a long time. I was with my fiance again. We had just came home from a festival. Both of us had to use the bathroom. I was upstairs doing my business, and then I hear a boom, boom, boom downstairs. Something was banging on the door to the garage from the kitchen. I run downstairs with my Glock 19. My fiance is still in the bathroom, asking why I was banging. I tell her that it isn't me. I open the door, gun drawn. No one's there. I say out loud again, "F this house." The next day, my fiance and I were hanging out. She goes to the bathroom. I go down to get a fork as we got Panda Express. I hear something fall down the stairs. I think, great, what now? A cup that was on my nightstand, nowhere near the stairs, magically launched itself through my doorway and then down the stairs. My fiancée could not have done it because I would have heard her moving, and why would she do that in the first place? I would have heard my bedroom door open. There's something weird going on in this house. Lastly, I have a story or two from my deceased friend. This is my friend's family. They owned a farm in northwest Indiana. They were raising cows and treat them like pets. One day, a cow dies and they bury it 6 feet under. The next day, The cow has been completely dug up and is gone. There's no tire tracks, no footprints. It was like something dug it up and walked away with it. My friend was going out to his car one night. He heard coyotes screaming. This was pretty normal, but it sounded like something bigger than a coyote howled back. All the coyotes just stopped. He turns and nopes back into the house and gives me a call. My friend was always very sensitive to spirits in life, and he had a lot of bad experiences. But to remember his memory, I want to tell his last story. My friend, like me, was a prankster, and I would always prank him. This story took place about a year after he was gone. I was in the house with my fiancé. My parents were home this time. I placed $50 on my shelf under a portrait of my deceased friend. I decide to go take a shower. While in the shower, I hear a voice say in my head, "Your $50 is going to disappear." I come back out of the shower. My 50 is gone. I confront my fiancée. She says that she didn't take it. I proceed to tear apart my room like a meth head that didn't get his supply. I leave to take fiancé home as we don't live together yet. I come back. The 50 is back where I left it. I love you, Jacob, but screw you. Seriously. Every year, around this time of year, I'm always reminded of these events that happened when I was younger. So I've written this all out, and I decided to share it, even if you don't believe me. I hope that at least somebody finds the story entertaining. So all of these stories take place in the same general area. The first incident that I can clearly remember happening was when I was 4 or 5 years old. After speaking to others in the area, I learned that the events I experienced were far from the only things to have ever happened in that area, but I digress. I'll get into the experiences told to me after I've relayed my own. It was a very typical summer night, and I was settling down to watch Snick. Kudos to anyone who has any idea what I'm talking about. My dad was doing some work outside, and my mom was in the kitchen, cleaning up from a dinner that we had all just finished, when suddenly, my dad comes in the house, pale as a sheet. My mom asked him what was wrong, and he replied, "I heard something outside. Go get me my gun." My mother, of course, complied. With the gun securely in hand, my dad went back outside, and my mother, my brother, and myself watched him from the doorway. And then, we heard it too. It sounded like a woman screaming or something. Now I know that a lot of animals do sound that way, especially when mating or in distress, but this one was a little different. It had some kind of other quality to it that I can't quantify, but I've lived in the country my whole life, and I've never really heard that sound before. The closest I've come is to some videos of very big cats, but that raises the question of what a big cat, especially one of this size, would be doing in the middle of Indiana. My dad paused for a second, and then he heard it again. But not wanting to look like a pussy in front of his wife and kids, he proceeded to the section of the field next to our house where the sound seemed to be originating from, his pistol held at the ready. Now it's important to note that when this happened, there was no house in that field next to ours. There was a house built there later, but at this point, it was just pure country darkness. My dad vanished into the gloom where the sound seemed to be originating from, and for a few breathless seconds, we heard nothing. And then my dad screamed and swore, and we heard the sound of gunfire. At this point, my mom shoved my brother and I back into the house and closed the door on us. I heard my dad yell, "Are the kids in the house?" The panic in his voice was very evident. Once my mom assured him that we were safe, they both came back inside. They drew the blinds, locked all the doors, and refused to speak about it. Later that night, I was eavesdropping on my parents through the vent in my room, and I heard my dad say to my mom, "You know, I don't know what that was, but I never want to see it again. The kids will probably ask. Just tell them it was somebody playing a trick on us." Of course, when I was younger, I didn't ask. But once I got older, I would ask him on occasion about it. He always refused to talk about it. And after that night, he began to drink heavily. But since then, he's fixed himself up and doesn't do that anymore. Some strange things began to happen after that, though nothing as major as that noise was. But in retrospect, they all seemed to be building up into some sort of crescendo. My mother walked into the kitchen one night and saw a Native American lady standing at our back window, and she was crying. She was alone in the house with us at that time. I did some research, and apparently the land that we now lived on was used as a trading ground some hundreds of years before the settlers ever came. I don't know any more than that about the land. One winter, my mother saw someone looking at her through our bathroom window. It's important to note that our bathroom window was 9 feet off the ground. She got my dad to look outside. Despite the heavy snowfall, there were no footprints leading to or from the house. However, there were a set of footprints in a circle right outside the bathroom window, again, with no footprints leading to or away from them. During this time, my dad's drinking was increasing exponentially. This seems to be a common thing in those who had experienced things in those woods, as it happened to a friend's father as well, but I'll get into that later. A very random event was that we would often hear heavy metal music coming from inside the walls. This happened up until we moved out about 15 years later. No one who lived near us listened to heavy metal. My brother, 2 years my junior, began talking about how he would see our dead great-grandfather in our house all the time. I wouldn't give any credence to this due to his age, except for the fact that he apparently described the suit that my great-grandpa was buried in a lot of detail. He wasn't at the wake or at the funeral. My father's drinking culminated in abuse to my mother, and they got divorced when I was 10 or 11. That's the last you'll hear of any of my family problems, though I do feel like what I've shared is relevant to this story. My father was the nicest guy in the world before that night, a wonderful person. I have to wonder what it was he saw that brought him to that point. After the divorce, my mother bought me and my brother a dog. It was the sweetest dog in the world. We kept him chained up outside. Every now and then, he would break loose, but he would never be gone more than an hour or two. But then one day, he broke free and didn't come back. My brother was understandably heartbroken. My mother promised him a new dog if that one didn't come back within a week, and a week to the day after that, we found out what happened to the dog. Well, sort of. My brother's screams woke me up that morning. My mother and I walked outside to see what was wrong. Well, it was pretty obvious what was wrong. The skin from the top of the dog's head was laying on our back porch. Just the skin, just from the top of its head. It looked as if somebody had ripped it off. It wasn't clean at all. We never did find the body. Traumatized, we buried the skin in the backyard. And then once I entered middle school, I made a friend in the grade above me. He lived about a half a mile down the road, so that was very convenient for me. One night I was over at his house, and he began telling me stories that his brother had told him. Stories of a beast with red eyes that lived in the woods and that would get you if you weren't careful. He of course told me that he had seen it a few times, once him from the top of the mulberry tree that grows across the road from his house, once while walking back from another friend of his house, just watching him from the tree line across a cornfield. Again at the same friend's house, it appeared on the roof of his garage. The fourth time he saw it, he said it was right outside of a screen door at his grandpa's house. He said it was crouched down on all fours, like some sort of animal. The other times, it had been too far away from him for him to make out the shape, but apparently up close, he could see that it was humanoid, but comprised entirely of darkness and shadow, except for the burning red eyes. I of course didn't believe him, but I still looked over my shoulder the entire way home. When I got home, I was greeted with my brother sobbing. I told him to calm down and try to explain to me what happened. He told me that he and a friend of his were walking back from another friend's house. And it should be noted that this is the same house that my friend claimed to see the beast on top of the garage. My brother said that they had gone down the trail that we took through the woods on a daily basis on their way home, but it sounded like somebody was following them, that somebody was keeping pace just out of sight. He turned around, and just for a second, he saw two red eyes set close to the ground, and then they rose up to a height of over 9 feet and started coming toward them as if the cover had been blown. My brother ran all the way home, presumably being chased. It should be noted, too, that he ran all that way in the dark by himself. My experience with this beast was to come later. After hearing about my brother's experience, I had my friend tell me everything he knew about the thing in the woods. He told me the story of his father, who had also seen it. I believe that it drove his father crazy, and I also believe it may have been what my father saw as well, given the parallels between the two stories. The only difference was that my father and mother divorced, and my father moved away. His father ended up getting shot by his mother due to the abuse that his drinking brought about. Being young, 15 to 16, and absolutely fearless at this time, I naturally thought it would be a good idea to screw with the thing, whatever it was, just to see what it was made of. I thought of myself to be better than everyone else. This proved to be a huge mistake. I went into the woods with a dagger, which I thought would somehow protect me, I guess. I don't exactly know what I was thinking. I sat in a clearing until it was dark. Then I started to try and taunt the thing. You know, general stuff that a teenager would say. You're a pussy. I don't believe in you. Show yourself. And things like, looks like everyone is afraid of nothing because the only ghost here is a gigantic pussy. I know. I thought I was super cool. You guys don't have to tell me. And now, the only problem for me was that what I was doing worked. The woods went quiet, quieter than I've ever heard them. And then in the distance, I hear something, a snap, 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 of something heavy taking slow, methodical, and deliberate steps toward me, breaking branches under its feet. I was still brave. I stood my ground. When the sound got to be about 30 feet from me, I heard a tree crash to the ground, followed by the same snap, snap, snap. I started to get very nervous all of a sudden. If it could push a tree over, then it would have no problem slapping my shit. And then something changed. The walking started to get faster. The slow, methodical steps turned into what sounded like a run or a sprint. A sense of dread came over me at that point, which I experienced later with my face-to-face encounter. I basically almost peed my pants, dropped the dagger, and ran home. Did I mention that I was home alone all that night? I got inside, I slammed the door behind me, I locked it, deadbolted it, and got a clean change of clothes and hopped in the shower. While I was showering, the noises started. It was like something with large claws was scratching the side of the house. Sometimes it would hit the house so hard that it was enough to shake the pictures off the walls. I put on my headphones and huddled in my room until my mom got home, which is when the noises stopped. I didn't tell her anything. The next morning, I looked outside and there were no scratches on the side of the house, nor were there any dents that you'd expect from something hitting that hard. I walked out to the clearing that I was in. I found my dagger hilt deep in a tree. I tried pulling it out, but it wouldn't budge. On my last visit to that location, it was just no longer there. The dagger and the tree were missing. I never went into the woods at night again. Things were as calm as they ever were after that, though the heavy metal coming from our walls was still as loud as ever. By this point, I had begun listening to metal myself, so it didn't bother me as much as it did the rest of the family. But I digress. I want to get to the meat of this section right away. We were at my grandpa's house the Christmas Eve after my experience in the woods. We left, and we were driving through a wooded section when my mom caught something in the headlights. Time seemed to slow down when I saw it. It was walking across the road from one wooded area to the next. The whole encounter couldn't have lasted longer than 15 seconds, but it seemed like 15 minutes. It stood around 9 feet tall. Its body was humanoid in shape indeed, but it was made up entirely of just blackness. Tendrils of darkness drifted off of its body when the headlights struck it. I am unsure if it was caused by the headlights or if it was simply some strange aspect of this thing. Its arms noticeably moved, though in a manner that is hard for me to demonstrate adequately. Its entire range of motion seemed so alien and unnatural to me. I was filled with dread. It turned and looked at me, its two eyes glowing coals floating into the physical darkness that was its body. The head turned, but not in the way yours or mine would. It was more like as if its eyes just shifted. It's very hard to describe. I made eye contact with it for what seemed like an eternity, and then it looked forward and walked back into the woods on the other side of the road. Time slowed down, and the sense of dread left me. We all looked at each other with the "did you just see that" look on our faces, but we didn't speak a word about it until we got home. These days, when I bring it up to my mom, she says that it was a raccoon, but the look in her eyes lets me know that she remembers, and that is all that I want. I want to know that I'm not crazy. I haven't seen it since, though the fear has never left me. We moved a year after that. I went to college but kept in touch with my friend who lived in the area. He became obsessed with the thing in the woods during that period. He would often go out into the woods at night with nothing but a tape recorder and some candles. I don't know if he ever picked up anything on the tape recorder, and to be honest, I wouldn't want to hear it if he did. The last words that he ever said to me were, "I went out into the woods, and I promised this thing my soul if it would give me," and you can insert the name of the girl that he loved at the time there. He got her, but she absolutely destroyed him. He's now a broken down junkie who lives day by day, eating from trash cans and stealing for a hit of whatever drug he can get his hand on. Before all of this, he was the smartest and brightest person I ever knew. He had such a bright future. I've since moved back to an area that's about a 10-minute drive away from where these events occurred. I'm kind of interested in going back sometime, but never without backup, and never at night. So, just what do you think was going on the land in both of these types of encounters? What do you think the thing was that was made up of shadows? Do you think that the Bigfoot put the X there, or do you think it was something else? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, I ask you to like and subscribe. I post 3 times a week on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I almost forgot the days that I post my own videos on right there, just drawing a blank as I'm talking. But if you would like to support the channel, there's a new hype feature on YouTube. Some people have it, some people don't. Like for me, I don't have it yet, but a lot of people do. So if you were to use one of your weekly hypes or your points or however it works on my video, I would be very grateful. And of course, I definitely see you in the comments hyping my videos, and I really appreciate it. I can't convey how much I appreciate the little family that we have here. So of course, just liking, subscribing, watching the videos, hyping the videos, all that stuff is amazing. If you want to go a little bit further, there is of course super thanks and memberships and the PayPal and the Patreon and all kinds of options. So, with all of that, I hope to see you next week. I hope you have a good week, a good weekend. And thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching. And I'll see you in the next one.